Reactive training systems.
It's interesting that you mentioned the guys from Data Driven Strength. Like, I enjoy conversations with them as well, and I think their perspectives on training are useful. What kinds of things did you draw from that, or do you draw from that? Like, what kinds of influences? Uh, like, how does that shape the way that you view training?
It was mainly like, I think critical thinking from their part was like one of the more refreshing things, because back in 2021 I was coached by Zach as well for like the entire year, so I had the opportunity to talk to him a bunch, ask him a bunch of questions, and like a lot of like programming things in specific, like a lot of things like I was able to put in my toolbox from working with him, like just certain protocols, because that was a year when I experienced a lot of injuries. It was also during the pandemic, if I remember correctly. So training circumstances weren't ideal to begin with. So just the creativity from him and working around certain things was really like refreshing. And like I said, like the critical thinking, I before I hopped on here, I just saw a video from Zach, where again he was talking about how people interpret the recent like science-based stuff. Like, yeah, you've seen it, of course. Like right now in the hypertrophy sphere, there's a lot going on about like how you should train, what's optimal, what's not optimal. Is more volume better? And then you have this other camp where they're like, okay, just do 2 sets to of 6 to 8 reps, and then just push it really hard, mechanical tensions, everything, and be scared of volume, be scared of the fatigue and stuff. Like this is so that's what I appreciate about them, is that they're still pushing this like critical thinking narrative, and just making sure that everyone is like up to date, basically.
Yeah, yeah, and a bit of nuance
Yeah,
too, right? Like
for sure.
they, I mean that's how like these internet arguments always devolve, is that you end up with these like two diametrically opposed camps, and it's rarely that simple, right? Like it's rarely, just do this extreme or that extreme, and you can find effectiveness in probably either group for a while, but then it always leaves something out,
Yep.
and I don't mean that's interesting to me, because like we talk about like periodization, long-term planning stuff as well, which is another rabbit hole to go down, but um, that's kind of the intent, right? Is to shore up any of those gaps left, you know. So I mean, it makes sense that you wouldn't expect to see long-term differences until you are in fact, looking at long-term time periods
hmm
as well. So
As coaches, especially ongoing coaches, we often want to find like the final product, like have pre-digested
hmm
information. And I actually remember, Jochen, you had taken the emerging strategies course before I did. And when I got curious about that, I asked you questions like, how did you find it? Because I didn't know, like, is that a course that is going to be worth consuming? Like, what am I going to take out from this? And one of the things that really caught my eye was that it's a course that doesn't talk in absolutes. It gives you information, but it basically it doesn't sell you a fish. It teaches you how to fish,
Actually, yeah.
So you learn how to think critically. And I think that's like a really valuable asset to have as a coach, especially like you, for example, you have a very natural curiosity, and you're by no means like a newcomer coach, like you're a young coach, but you're still you've been in the game for quite some time, and something I see in you is that you're still very curious and you still seek out to gain more knowledge. And I think if you're a newcomer coach and you're learning more about programming and training stuff, of course, theory is good to have, like good to know, but you definitely need to also start thinking critically.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I will like a big reason for me as to why I think I'll stay curious for the rest of my life is because it always still feels like I am this new coach, like especially in moments like these, I'm talking to Mike Tishier, the guy who brought RPE into powerlifting, like one of the coaches I look up to greatly, one of the guys that even though he doesn't realize it, he has taught me a lot through the podcast, through the classrooms, through many YouTube videos, even the seminars back in 2019 you did with Bryce and yourself in Power Move in Belgium.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I remember
yeah.
that. That was a fun one for me. It was a
No,
fun
that
one.
was one of the most fun weekends I've had ever, which said a lot about my life, I guess. Um, but no, like I just remember like so many things. That was like following the trail of athlete response. So one of those key things from RTS that I just that'll always stick with me. And um, there's one thing even before I knew what like the fitness fatigue model meant and how what it was. You were talking about how you don't need to be like the most recovered to be at your best. Like this is such a random example, but that's something that always stuck with me. And I didn't even know what fitness fatigue model was or what it meant. But like when you said that, it just I was like, okay, yeah, that does make sense because when I did squat every day back in the day, I had some days where I was extremely sore, but I was still performing amazing and where I still felt super strong. And that's, I think, something that will always stick with me and that has kind of that kind of revolutionized things a lot for me in my tapering process for the athletes before like a competition. I'm I'm not scared to like leave a bunch of work in. Like I'm not scared um to have them be like a little fatigued going into the meet because I know they'll be performing well. But like going back to the curiosity in general, I feel like it's also a bit imposter syndrome, I guess. I'll always feel like I don't know enough, and I don't ever want to come across like a situation with an athlete where I'm just like, shit, man, I don't know, like I don't know what we're gonna do here. Um, I don't ever want to feel like that. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I relate to that. Kind of wanting to have tools to solve the like whatever problems in front of you,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, you get confident with certain tools that you repetitively use, but like the more you learn about programming and training, the more you kind of realize that you don't know it all. And sometimes it's also incredibly useful to
Mhm.
accept this, especially because when you run into issues with athletes that you've never run into before, it like knowing this keeps you open minded to, in that situation, take a step out and seek knowledge elsewhere and just inform yourself, or maybe even just tell your athlete, okay, hey, this is a situation, actually, it's new. Those are the options we could have. Let's brainstorm together, and you also help me help you.
Mhm.
That's also how we keep
Yeah.
learning.
Yeah. Just like be honest about it too with the athlete. Like when you feel like, okay, we have so many options right here, but like this narrows it down to like three options. And even asking the
Yeah.
athlete sometimes, like, what do you think out of these options could work the best, or what do you find yourself doing? What do you see yourself doing? Like, what does feel like what feels the most logical step forward to you? I guess. Yeah. Um,
So you reminded me of another coach that I spoke to years ago who wasn't a bad coach. He's just inexperienced. right. But he was getting into the emerging strategy stuff, the follow the trail of athlete response stuff, and kind of coming to terms with what you were talking about, Gabby, about how like we kind of don't know a lot, like there's a lot of educated guesses going on, and looking at different streams of data and making your prediction. But he just like really started coming to terms with we don't actually know, this isn't a precise science. And he was talking to me about like this problem he was having where he was kind of freaking his athletes out a bit, because he was talking to them like, I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, like there's a way to say it.
Of course.
Like the sentiment is true, but you can't just like be pulling your hair out. We don't know what's going to happen. Like, it's like, yes, that's true. We don't, but we know it's probably going to be one of these things. And if it's this, then we're going to do that. If it's the other thing, then we're going to go a different direction. And, there's a way to kind of talk about it to inspire confidence, but it doesn't have anything to do necessarily with what you were saying. It's just a funny story that I remembered.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. When you communicate that uncertainty, there's a good way and a bad way to do it.
Yeah, you can be panicky, of course. You'll be like, okay, like this is my experience, or this is my educated guess based on my current knowledge. But I think Kedrick has said like similar things, like sometimes when stuff works, I mean, we don't necessarily have to know why. We know that it works, which is great, which is the main thing. And I think as coaches, sometimes it's fine to not know what the why, because I mean the results matter, of course, and yeah, maybe it's applicable in the future, but you never know.
Yeah, it's useful to look at, but the theory can definitely get in the way of good decision making.
Yep.
Sometimes just kind of conjecture about theory, and you see this in other areas too. Like I don't know, pick any sort of like old timer, like the old timers were right sort of topic, and in the areas where old school wisdom has since been validated scientifically, right? Often the mechanism that the old timers referred to was wrong, but they were pointing to a phenomenon. It's just that the reasoning was wrong. No, and that incorrect reasoning might have led to other decisions that weren't great. But so yeah, we definitely try to converge on better explanations of things. But definitely agree with you that you can have a good process, even if you're just acknowledging that there's a difference between like the theory and the application. Like this worked, and I think it might be because of it improved our joint durability or whatever, and maybe that turns out to be false later. But you can still kind of come back to the initial observation of, well, the thing worked, maybe just not for the reasons I thought.
Yeah. And of course we're talking about like 20% of like situations. It's not like everything we do is just like a guess. Like, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I think that's something that I'm probably guilty of, is kind of focusing on that 20%, because I mean that's where it's more fun to there's areas to explore and stuff, but you're right that most of it is on pretty firm footing, and we kind of find our ways. And that's why like you talk to coaches when you compare notes, you're like, yeah, okay, I see what you're getting at there. Like maybe I would do it slightly differently, but we agree more than we disagree in most cases.
But the other cases also keep you young. They keep you out of the routine, because sometimes falling into a routine can be quite dangerous, because then you tend to become lazy and overlook certain things. So it's good to also sometimes focus on the 20%.
Yeah, true.
In terms of coaching, like you have a really athlete-centered approach. So, and you've been coaching for how many years so far?
Close to 7 years. So I was the classic do a meet and start coaching type of coach, but I stuck with it for
Yeah.
the last few years. I've been doing it full time since October last year, which feels great. Feels great.
That's awesome.
You know. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, I can imagine that also your approach has changed over the course of the last years, or you found that maybe like a certain approach on like working with athletes has shown to be more successful because you're coaching several athletes in Belgium and maybe also some athletes internationally. What kind of approach works best with your athletes, coaching wise?
I mean, sometimes when I have like an intake call with an athlete, they ask me the same thing, and I'll tell them I don't really have an answer for you because it really depends on the individual. I just want to listen to you, listen what your listen to what your goals are, whatever you need. Prioritize what you want, not what I want for you. Like I feel like sometimes as coaches, it's easy to push your own agenda, to kind of push up your I mean, yeah, the results of everyone just like artificially inflate stuff or anything. I just want to make sure that the athlete, like you said, like it's an athlete centered approach. Well, of course, like it includes like personalized training. It's um of course supporting like physical well-being, mental well-being, just like this holistic approach. But it's I mean that's a boring answer, because ultimately success in coaching and for the athlete and the coach stems from a flexible athlete-focused strategy um, that adapts to the individual in front of you, basically. So yeah, there's so many different things you can do with someone, and I sometimes I have athletes coming to me with like a conjugate background, so then it's hard to pull them out of that completely. I still have to keep some stuff of that in because of course buy-in is important, and I guess what they were doing was fun to them as well. So why would I push what I know or what I do with other athletes? I can't extrapolate the things I do with one person to another. And I feel like this is such a cop-out answer because it's just like a long way of saying it depends.
Well, no, I mean it's an honest answer, Can you say more about like that particular example? I think powerlifting as a whole still has kind of an evolving relationship with conjugate style training in general. So I'd be curious to know more about that story. Somebody comes to you with a conjugate background and just how you kind of find the intervention for them. Just like what's the blend shake out to be?
Well, most of the time, I just, as soon as possible, I try to get rid of any speed work or anything. I don't want that to
Yeah.
be in the program, but like, let's say they love using accommodating resistance, and I think that's a great thing to do. There are definitely enough use cases. They love benching with fans. Good. I do that with some athletes too, even the ones that don't come from a conjugate background. Deadlifting against bands, maybe to teach someone to be patient with the lockout and not ramp or hitch. Um, there are enough ways to like kind of circumvent what they love and then still make it like useful and applicable to what they actually want to do. Um, because of course the accommodating resistance comes from an era of equipped lifting. Um, but yeah, I feel like there's still enough use cases for it with raw lifters in general. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a good low hanging
Mhm.
fruit. It's so interesting to me, like just how that system is thought of and how it's used. And suppose I shouldn't take us too far down like a conjugate rabbit hole, but you know, like that seems sensible to me, you know, and as a starting point for most of the people who we end up working with, which are, I think most people are going to find some utility in probably making the speed day or whatever a bit heavier than, at least heavier than the way it's written in the magazines and whatnot. It seems to me like the people who find utility in that are people who can end up a bit beat up and basically need a lighter session, you know.
Yeah.
Load management, basically.
Yeah. I mean, like submax work in general is still useful. And I think that's one of the things we still overlook sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a thing that it's just interesting to see like the ebb and flow of some of those tendencies, right? Because on one hand, you know, like I'm not familiar with you know, if you necessarily use protocols that are like the sub 5 RPE category, but I mean, that has a lot in common with, you know, classic West Side style speed work. You know, even though you may like some of the details might be different. You know, and in the magazines they were writing about like 10 sets of 3, but you know, I've talked to people who've been there and they experienced it differently. Well, sometimes it was 5s, and sometimes it was, you know, you would do a heavier 5x5 or whatever. You know, different gyms would run that in different ways too. So I don't know. There's just a lot of variability, and it comes back to the same thing, which is just like, hey, let's solve the athlete's problem. You know, if we're having problems with recovery, then maybe don't do things that beat them up so much. If we're, you know, need to put on size, maybe we need to do some things that help you put on size, you know, things like that, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes the answer is really common sense, and this might turn into like an SBD specificity discussion now, but Jochen and I have worked for some time together, and where he was my coach, and I kind of pushed the baseline strategy onto him. I was like, hey, let's do high frequency SBD. It sounds like the complete opposite of what like you would intuitively tend to do in a situation where you have an athlete that deals with a lot of back stiffness, doesn't really recover from the bare minimum of doing that. It's like, hey, let's just see what happens if we just do the complete opposite. And intuitively, like I was like, okay, let's do with baseline. You have like the heavier top set work, and you pair it with like very light work, and we even down regulated like baseline work even more than like 75%. So it was like around between 60 and 70%, which pretty much ended up being speed work for me. That's what it felt like, at least. So yeah, I thought it was like a good way to manage the loads. I was wondering now, since I know Jochen, you also recently took a course about SBD, like high SBD work. Do you see that this is a trend that repeats with a lot of athletes that you've coached so far, that's also doing maybe an high SBD specific approach, or was it like just like a one case scenario?
No, you started the ball roll. You made the ball roll for everyone, because I think I have 3 other athletes now that actually do like high frequency SBD. I've one woman in particular who does 5 times a week SBD. Deadlifts conventional too. So when she actually proposed it to me, I was like, I'd rather not, but I know you really want to try it, so I'll do my best to figure it out. And actually, she has a history of back pain too, and we haven't had as many issues with the 5 times SBD as we had before. So like, yeah, I did the course from Pavel, the coach of Agatha, Shitko, of course. Um, and he was also talking about like how some sessions are just like some recovery sessions where you do some easy work, just to get the movement in, basically. And with her, I only have like one squat session that's actually very light and one deadlift session that's actually very light, but for the most part, she does four pretty heavy sessions, and she just eats it up. And she really does well on it too, because she's the one that actually pushed me to do more. She still felt like she needed more, and every time I was like, okay, you're not in pain, so we can try it. But I'm always like this, like super careful if there's like this like sliding meter, like I'm just like trying to hold it back while she's just like trying to yank on it. um and yeah, it's going really well. Like her deadlift response to intensity doesn't make any sense to me, but it does. Her squat, it kind of does make more sense that she responds to intensity in my head. But it's been, yeah, you were the first one, but you weren't the last one, and I guess some people will keep pushing that narrative, and especially if Agatha keeps crushing it, it's just gonna become a mainstay. Like she started doing 7 times a week SBD. I guess the next step is 14 sessions a week, where she does twice a day. I don't know. What do you think, Mike, about like the high SBD
So,
stuff, high frequency?
well, I mean, it reminds me that that is a thing. So in 2013, the World Championships, I dropped 2 deadlifts, and you don't win a World Championships by doing that. So the guy, the guy who won was a Bulgarian lifter, Ivailo Hristov, who trained for powerlifting like in the old school Bulgarian style, where and even like in the taper week, he was in the training hall of the competition doing like heavy singles twice a day. And someone asking like, "Aren't you tapering?" He's like, "I am tapering. I usually do 3 times a day." um,
Wild.
so I mean, the other thing that it reminds me of, you both were talking about how uh, some people have felt better from an injury standpoint doing very high frequencies, and that checks out to me. Um, I remember people talking about daily maxing back when like powerlifting went through its last flirtation with that style of training, and people would talk about similar things like, "Oh, my bad knee doesn't bother me as much when I'm doing daily squatting," and things of that nature. So that kind of checks out, honestly. Um, I can't imagine that it would be that way for all injuries, but um, it also kind of lines up with how we uh, do like aggressive reintroduction from injuries as well. Like you have somebody who tweaks their adductor or something like that. There's nothing, you know, major and no like underlying damage that really needs to heal, right? And once you come out of that acute phase, you're like, well, I'm gonna do a reintroduction period. I'm gonna ramp things back up, and of course, this always seems to happen just near competition too. So I just went through this with a couple of lifters actually, and coming into competition, had a minor injury a couple weeks out, get through that acute phase, and we're like, okay, 2 weeks to go. We're gonna do this like super. We're gonna ramp up as fast as we can because that's all the time we have. We can't go any slower. Um, so you go from one plate on the bar and then step up in increments, training the provoking lifts pretty much every day, and then it's been my experience that often enough, of course, it's got to be the right situation and all the caveats apply, but often enough we do something like that and it works out. So all that, I guess, is just to me saying these are like other avenues that we've arrived at a similar approach of like high frequency stimulus on a given tissue, as long as it's not too much in any one dose, is seems to be maybe helpful. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I was actually talking about that with one of my athletes because his back is hurting, and it's something that has bothered him in the past, and it just seems to go away randomly. But right now it's fairly intense, and like one of the things I like to do is, like, let's say you have like back pain, like what's one of the things you say when someone has back pain? Go on a walk, make sure you move as much as possible. But when your back's hurt, you don't really have a way of walking with your backs. I mean, you can walk on your heads, but your backs aren't gonna feel great afterwards. Um, so I felt like,
Maybe too much
yeah,
intention.
exactly, especially if you're heavier. No, but and that always, like, because I'm someone that has experienced a lot of back strain in the past as well, and I always felt like there was like something missing, and I just started doing like extremely high rep, like one and a quarter and a full rep of cable fly, so really exaggerating that lengthened position. And I feel like from a movement variation standpoint, because benching, we're always trying to be as efficient as possible, not the biggest range of motion, just being the strongest we can be. And sometimes we get into a rut of like only staying in that range of motion. And I felt like that was like my way of walking for the pecs. It just made me think of what you were talking about.
Yeah, that I apologize in advance, but that makes me think of like again, like an old school West Side concept of they used to call them extra workouts, where they would, like, outside of the main training sessions, they would do like these 15 to 20 minute. At least they would write about it. I'm not sure who actually did them, but um, like they were supposed to be like 15 to 20 minutes extra sessions. And of course, I read it about this in the magazine, so I definitely did it for a period of my life. But it could be something simple, like you throw a band over the top of a doorway and do 100
Yeah.
tricep pushdowns, and and like looking back on it, like, is that really stimulating? I don't know. Like, I'm not sure how close to failure you were getting on any of this, but um, it was. I don't think it was meant for that
Yeah.
either. I think it was meant more for like just what we're talking about here. Like, it's movement, it's increasing blood flow, so perhaps there's a recovery benefit to it. And maybe it's just a little bit of extra volume, and maybe that stuff adds up over a long enough time period.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people still do those 100 to 200 rep sets of like the door extensions. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a classic one.
Yeah, right.
Talking about like being stuck in the same range of motion or just repeatedly training the same range of motion. Like when we circle back to the high frequency SBD, do you think there is utility in just deviating from that type of program? Like, do you see success doing that with your athletes, or do you think some athletes, like, they can just train or should train all year round high frequently the SBD without any issues? Or is there like a golden middle?
I mean, I feel like this is like this conversation of like the golden microcycle versus periodization, and right now it feels like we're kind of like going away from that golden microcycle and getting back to periodization. At least I am, and from listening to like the powerlifting now guys, they feel like the same way, because at some point like it does get super repetitive, even though and my question then is like, does like this repetitiveness cause like a stagnation in like motivation, and therefore the effort that's put in, and therefore the results of the cycle, even though it could still be very very useful or very stimulating? But to answer your question, I'm not sure actually. I'd rather have there be like some periods of um variation, but it also depends on the lifter, because I have some people who genuinely hate like doing deloads or pivots or anything. And then they just want to keep working and working. And then I just have to find a way of implementing that type of work into the into the cycle itself, just to make sure there is this movement variation in there. And that's what I mean, accessories are for, kind of. Like it's like my main three reasons for accessories are, of course, you have hypertrophy, then you have like the health exercises where you do like, let's say, a adduction machine and you really exaggerate the like lengthened part, or like the cable flies, let's say. It's like a health exercise. And then you have like the stimulating exercises that, like, let's say 2 days before you have your primary squat day, you need like 2 sets of 12 on the belt squat to make sure your legs feel strong, your quads feel poppy, snappy, whatever. Um, yeah, again, boring ass answer. It depends. Yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah, I actually found myself for a long time looking or being comfortable with the like golden microcycle as a coach as well. Like being too comfortable in, okay, this is something I found that works with my athletes, so let's just repeat it. And then at some point, if it doesn't give the same results, I'm like, okay, where do we go from here?
Mhm.
And if we keep doing that, I found that for myself, as a coach, I tend to become less risky. So sometimes with some athletes, like if you let them guide you and they also tell you like, hey, this is really not working for me anymore, or they just, you can tell they crave some novelty, it can be worth to also take high risks and deviate from that strategy and then maybe circle back to it afterwards. But also, as you mentioned, with the ones that like tend to feel very comfortable in the strategies that they're doing at the moment, um, swapping some exercises like accessories can be really, really useful without it feeling like you're reinventing the wheel completely.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's the way a lot of that's the way a lot of powerlifting coaches keep the program interesting, and I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with it either. But you swap out your tricep pushdowns for dumbbell extensions, and I mean, yeah, it's a little different, but is that really changing the entire focus of the program? I mean, probably not. These are fairly small changes, but powerlifters tend to be happy as long as the weight is getting
Mhm.
heavier. So as long as we're seeing some progress, and especially your more novelty seeking lifters, unless they're like on the extreme end of novelty seeking, they're going to be happy. You swap out an exercise here and there as long as we're moving forward. Yeah, just keep the good times rolling. Um, there are some that are kind of a little further on that novelty seeking side that really do want to see something different. But then I always kind of get this sense that there's something a bit more to the athlete buy-in, athlete engagement side of it. It doesn't seem like it's just an effort thing. It seems like there's, you kind of were alluding to it a little bit. When you do the same thing over and over and over and over, and do you get kind of numb to it mentally, like from a mental standpoint? And then if you do, what effect does that have, versus if you were able to stay more mentally engaged? And I think there's a selection bias in powerlifting as well, that seeks to, the people who cope with, fairly repetitive training tend to do better, so I think that's kind of at work in there too.
Yeah, like you were talking about like novelty seeking athletes, and when I when I hear that, I just feel like those are like the people who really don't last in a sport like this most of the time. Like, if I'm honest, that's how I feel, because this is such a monotonous sport. Like, you do 3 movements on the competition. Like, if you want to be competitive, of course, like you still have like these recreational lifters, which is totally fine, and then you can be as novelty seeking as you want. But like, if you want to be competitive, if you want to become the best powerlifter you can be, I mean, sometimes it's gonna get really boring. Yeah.
Well, I think there's that's part of it, and part of, you know, different ways of looking at training and kind of dissecting training and analyzing and stuff like that. I think part of that is an effort to find interesting things to pay attention to in this, you know, otherwise monotonous sort of endeavor. Because I think for a lot of us too, like, take any given powerlifter and you say, hey, for your health, you're going to need to spend 30 minutes on a treadmill or an exercise bike every day from now until forever. And a lot of us go like, that just kill me now, you know, just get it over with. But I think the reason why is because that sounds super duper boring. But if you look close enough, there's probably something that you can find to make it interesting, you know, if you decide to care about it enough. At least that's what I'm telling myself now that I'm in my 40s, and I'm going like, at some point I'm going to need to start doing some of this stuff. So look out for new spreadsheets coming soon.
Yeah, but it's definitely also not all about the program. Like, Jochen, you coach several lifters that I see, like, record-breaking lifters, also fast-rising lifters in the game. And do you notice like that they have like certain characteristics? Like they seem to be very consistent. That's for sure. Like, is there anything else that really keeps them motivated or consistent in a game?
Yeah, so when you sent me the sheet with like the questions, is something I was thinking about, and you have these like super boring answers, like mental toughness, one of the ones I wrote down, having clear goals. I mean, those are obvious, but I feel like having a very supportive environment, as in like a gym or a training partner, or even your significant other who just like understands and respects what you're trying to accomplish, even though it might mean like sacrificing time together. I feel like that's super underrated, uh, and especially like the gym part. You don't have to. I would love it if like, there were like super strong gyms here in Belgium, like people that are just like astronomically strong. When I trained together with Olivier in his before he got cancer, it was like every session he's doing more than me, and feel I just feel I wouldn't say weak, but like when I see that, I'm like, oh, fuck, I want to be that. I want to be that strong. I want to
And
I
that,
want to do what you do basically. But the fact that he was doing it also like paved the way for me, and he showed that it was possible to do. And I feel like that can help break mental barriers for some people, as it did for me. And like apart from a supportive environment, I feel like it's also, and then more specifically to coaching, it's like really being a good communicator, and like being able to interpret and actually like use the feedback your coach gives you, but also being honest in your communication. Like, if you're not feeling well, or you're feeling beat up, like communicate like those feelings. That also the coach still has to make sure they ask like the right questions. Where do you feel like the most tired, like during a squat? Is it the bar that feels heavy on your back? Is it your legs that feel heavy, or you don't feel strong in the legs? Um, but yeah, I mean, um, providing clear feedback, being honest. I mean, those are like the big things in the lifters I see, and then just being very. I feel like those lifters also like put a lot of trust in me, which is like a very humbling feeling as well. Like it also pushes me to be better for them, and then that just ties back to like my curiosity, and just want to make sure that I I'm like the smartest person for them, or the best coach for them in that moment, let's say.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Gym environment really matters a lot. And I like sometimes we cannot necessarily control that, or there are lifters that don't have access to like the big boy group that's, for example, you always had in a gym. So actually some lifters, they reach out to a coach because they want to have someone to share their journey with, also who holds them accountable for it, and not just someone who writes like the best program that they can do. And like maybe you can relate to that. Sometimes they just also need someone to talk to, like, hey, this is going on in my life, and you can also use that and like talk with them about this and try to motivate them in training, because it's all connected to each other. So
Mhm.
it really matters. Sometimes we tend to forget that it's not only about, okay, this moved good, but also
Yeah.
how are you actually doing?
Yeah.
How is your motivation and training? Let me help you with that as well. Like, we're in this together. And I feel like you do a really good job at also showing that, because you show that you're really encouraged at like bringing the best out of your athletes.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I hope it comes off like that. I mean, like caring about the athlete in front of you, even though like they're not like the best athlete in the world, I feel like, and but still seeing them succeed and inch closer towards their goals, it's like one of the most rewarding feelings ever. Like if you have someone that just really wants to hit like a two-plate bench, like it's Lord, at this moment, like two-plate bench isn't a two-plate bench like it was like 10 years ago. Now the
Yeah.
two-plate bench has become like a three, maybe even four-plate bench. But like still like people have those goals, and even if it's like objectively not as good as some people, like I still feel like, dude, you worked so hard for this. Let's fucking go. I'm really happy for you. And then it just like cements like the um coach athlete relation, like genuinely caring. I feel like that's the glue that holds everything together.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I echo what you said also about training environment being a thing that is underrated. It's really important, really valuable. Um, cultivating the training environment is, I mean, it's not an easy thing to do either, right? Like it's hard to find good training partners sometimes, and it takes work to line your schedules up and things like that. But it is a really important thing to do. It's something that I, as being like a long time like home gym kind of guy, it's something that I can shove off on the back burner for a while, and then notice it too late. You go, oh man, I've been kind of ignoring this for too long. But I mean, there's some things that you can do even in that environment too, just to help you come in a bit more focused, come in a bit more, ready to do the thing,
Mhm.
and like I know some people can listen to podcasts while they train, and for me, I can't.
Mhm.
Like that sucks me right out of like my presence, you know. So like maybe if I'm just really a bit kind of low on training motivation, and it's an unimportant session, maybe I can do that as a way to just kind of get through. But for me, like that's kind of part of managing my own training environment.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, there's a lot that you could say, I think, about training environment and kind of the management of that.
I'm gonna make this a West Side podcast again. Like when I talk about training, and when I hear about training environment, it always, like, one of the first things I think about is like how they were talking about their training environment, but not like in a supportive way. Like they were legitimately scared at like certain times. That and I don't know if that was something like you talked about or someone else, maybe on Elite FTS or something, that I heard this, but they were talking about how like it's like a genuinely scary environment to be in. Like I need to perform, or there were gonna be like fights or stuff like that. That's what I remember about it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so there's like so many ways of organizing that, right? And I think the individual differences thing is probably 10 times more prevalent there, just in terms of like how personality differences affect people. But like the West Side thing is one example. Another example that I came across, I don't actually know how verifiably true this is, but it makes for a good story, so we'll tell it anyway. But I was talking to a coach who actually went to China and visited the Chinese national weightlifting team. This was quite a few years ago. So he said that at the actual training hall, they bring in the top, whatever, 24 weightlifters. Um, and I don't know exactly how that's determined, or like 24 in what way. But anyway, they are kind of rank ordered, so 1 through 20 something. And let's say you're the number 8th ranked weightlifter, that they put your training platform in the training hall in rank order. So you're training beside number 7 and number 9 every day. So you're training beside the two people who are ranked closest to you, and that would be a way of managing training environments. And again, so I've been told is that every week or so they have like their heavy session, their max out session or whatever. They do it as a practice competition with your teammates in attendance, like sitting there in the audience. So you go up and you take your attempts, but your teammates, whether friendly or not, are the ones that are sitting there watching you. And so that can create a lot of pressure in that environment as well. So, and I know that I'm for sure that there are plenty of powerlifters listening to this thinking like, that sounds horrible to me, right? Like I just would not want to be in that environment. And I don't know. I mean, for myself, like I could see periods of time where that sounds like that would be really motivating, but then other periods of time that sounds like a recipe for burnout too. So maybe that's something else that needs to be periodized.
Yeah. Pressure.
I think people are actually nowadays also actively seeking this type of environment on social media, creating, how do you call it, rivalries, or just trying to beat each other, like not so obviously like actually beating each other, but like beating each other's performance. So yeah, I think that's also a way on how to do it. Competitiveness is incredibly important in the sport.
Yeah.
I mean, some people really respond well to it and some don't. And I feel like that's also dependent on like what your background was before you came into powerlifting. Like, were you an athlete before? I feel like most athletes that actually did like a sport beforehand, even if it's like individual or team based, like they usually handle competitiveness like a bit better than others, because you and I mean that doesn't necessarily mean you have to handle it well. Like I remember Bryce Lewis talking about how he removed Instagram from his phone just to make sure before the World Championships or Nationals, just to make sure that he doesn't like, get like influenced in a negative way. But that doesn't mean like he's not competitive. Maybe that meant he was like too competitive. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting to see people like, hiding training as you come into a competition. And I think that's kind of become a little less prevalent than it was a handful of years ago. But I always thought like the way to, it just doesn't give you that much of a competitive advantage, if any, at all. And probably if you're going to do anything to get a competitive advantage, like posting your successful training is a way to influence your competitors to push harder, try harder, and that might just be too much. So if you're competitive in that way, then that seems to me to be it's still somewhat unlikely strategy, but it's more likely than just like, hey, I lulled you into a false sense of security. And, I just don't see that as being a really likely outcome.
I don't feel like that happens, like intentionally.
Yeah.
That would be weird. Would be a master play though if it
Right.
worked.
Yeah. Like, oh man, I thought you weren't coming, so I just decided not to train hard.
Yeah.
We were talking about communication with your athletes and like bringing the best out of them, building that relationship. And I know, Jochen, you coach a lot of athletes in Belgium. I'd say like mainly like the majority of your roster consists of Belgian athletes. Do you notice like a difference in the like way you communicate or can build relationships with your Belgian athletes versus with international athletes?
Well, I mean, it's like a bit more personal with the local athletes because usually you've talked to them before at like competition or wherever, or you see them more frequently in the gym or at competitions, let's say. So it's slightly more personal, but when someone like inquires internationally, I still want to keep like this sort of like close friendliness with them as well, because I mean that's how I like to work with my athletes. I kind of want to be like close to them. I want them to be able to confide in me. You won't confide in someone who you don't trust or who you're not kind of friendly with. Like it's gonna be harder to communicate honestly about things happening in your life, and we all know that's very relevant to training as well. Um, but I just set like the same expectations for everyone. Like I want to hear you at least as many times as you train a week. Make sure you send me videos during training or after training, doesn't really matter. And I'll get back to you within like 24 hours. Maybe most of the time, like it's faster than that because I have like these dedicated times a day where I'll sit down and I answer messages. Um, but sometimes I feel like that it's harder to get this like friendly relationship with an international athlete, not because of the distance, but because of it feels um like a little more professional. Like the relationship generally feels a little more professional because they inquire to someone they only know from like Instagram, probably haven't talked to them in real life before. But I try to kind of circumvent that by like hopping on calls with them a little more frequently just to make sure um, we we can just like crack a few jokes, like talk about training, crack a few jokes, and just kind of try to let them know that I'm a real person. Like I'm not here to like I'm like this stiff stiff guy that's like, yes, good lift, move on, good session. Like the Russian, I don't know why I did a Russian accent. I feel like that just made sense, I guess.
It's on brand, I
I
think.
think so. Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah. I've talked to. I mean, I've talked to the translator of Boris Shaiko, and he was also very, very like stiff. Yeah.
yeah. But that was actually a good point because you mentioned you give every athlete the same opportunity. Like they have the same access to you. Of course, like the international ones, or the ones that don't train in your gym or don't see you at competitions, they don't see you in real life. But everyone has kind of the same access to us. And then it depends on like why do they hire you? Because I remember like when I started off coaching, I had like the majority of my roster consisted of local athletes that I also regularly would do meetups with and so on. And I think for you, it's like a lot of athletes also might contact you for the same reason. They see a community that is happening in Belgium and they would just want to be part of it. And then it becomes a bit more personal. Whereas, like the athletes that are from other countries, they see what is happening on Instagram. They see you as like the experienced coach very well knowledgeable about training and so forth, and they want you for this. So it's like different types of needs.
Yeah.
They still get the same access to you. It just depends on what do they hire you for.
That's a great point. I never really thought about that before. That's a great point. Like local lifters tend to be more inclined to be part of like a community rather than maybe choosing the coach because of what he knows or what he does or what he is. But then internationally, it's kind of different. Like when you think about international coaches, you think about what have they done, what are the results. Like the community is mostly online based, so it's not really like you're part of something local. Yeah, that's an awesome point. Never thought about that. That's gonna keep me awake at night. Great, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I also just realized because I, like when my rosters was switched over to mainly consisting of international athletes, I noticed like with some I don't have the same connection as with others. Like it's different for everybody, and I was like, okay, what can I do about this? Like I have to change this. It has to become more personal. What you can do is like you offer them calls, you check in on them, but it's up to them to also take this and make it a bit more personal. And if they don't want to, that's completely fine. That's not what they hired you for. So yeah.
That's a good point too about different clients wanting different things. That I'm the same way, that the coaching relationship feels better with a bit of closeness. Like I feel like I'm doing my job better as well. Like, let me say that differently. My assessment is that I'm doing a better job of coaching. Is not just a feeling. I think there's some like genuine information that gets exchanged when you have cultivated a little bit closer relationship than just, it cuts the same direction. Like there are some people that just choose not to send in videos. I had a different story. I won't sidetrack myself, but I'll the point being, like, if they're not looking for that, then I guess you can't push it. But I do think that there's a benefit to it, even if that's not like the primary reason that somebody hires you. Right?
Yeah. I feel like for you, Mike, probably, I don't think people hire you to become your friend, I guess. Like people hire you because of what you've done and what you did before and the results you've had with other people, your knowledge.
Yeah, and I mean that's absolutely a good thing.
It is.
It is interesting though. Like some people are still in the way of just tell me what to do, and then other people not so much. I mean, it's been quite a few years ago now, but I had a one client who I had worked with for a long time. She was a lawyer, and I would go through long stretches of just sending the program into the void a little bit, and she would check in like just as I was about to think like maybe something happened to her.
Yeah.
She would check in, and you go like, well, okay, I'm glad you're still going, but are you sure that you want to still keep going? Like, is this working for you? And she's just like, yeah, this is what I need right now, Okay, fine.
I don't get that. Like I feel like it's so no, I will never get that. Like I don't work well with those athletes too. Like I've had some in the past, and I've had some people that I actually tried to change from being that way, like really reminding them constantly, please send me your videos. But I just think of one person, and he recently just joined in again. Like I wouldn't hear him for like 2 months, and then after 2 months, he just sent me, dude, I'm feeling so strong. Training's never been better. Thank you so much. You're the best. And then I won't hear for him for another 2 months, and I'll just hear the same thing over and over. and it kind of feels fake because it kind of feels like I'm not doing anything for him. But when he rejoined, I really made sure that he'll stay on track with that, because I don't work well with people who do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not my preference. Gabby, you seem to be really like community oriented as well. I'd be curious to know like how you would respond to somebody who just kind of had that preference.
Yeah, I feel like it's just a certain standard we hold ourselves up to, because I remember there's an athlete like who I like, just like you, Mike, I actually got concerned about, and I reached out to John. I was like, I actually don't know if something happened to him because I haven't heard from him in a while, and he's also not logging in any training, and I just keep deploying training. I don't know what to do. Eventually, I also got an answer, but it never really changed, But the client was always satisfied. It's just I felt like with the standards we hold ourselves up to, it's because this is the way this represents our workflow, and this is the way we work the most efficiently. Because if we are not as close to an athlete, I mean, it doesn't have to be like a friend, but if there is some information missing, it is information that is important for us to know, to like learn more about the athletes, and not just for the current block to make adjustments, but also to keep things in mind for the future. Like, this is the way how we can move forward. And yeah, if then an athlete is just like, okay, your training is going well at the moment and everything is good, you're doing a good job, then okay. But at a certain point, training is not going well anymore, and then we just get a message like, yeah, everything moved bad today, and we're being left in the dark. So yeah, it's just we as coaches, we want to be close to an athlete, and we expect a certain type of engagement because we are engaged in a process as well, and we just want to know a certain type of information that can help us help them. So it just doesn't work the way to just deploy training and then not talk to each other for like until things go wrong.
If you had someone that signed up, I guess this is for kind of both of you. If you had someone that signed up to work with you and they just told you that up front, like, look, I really want to work with you. I think you're the coach for me. I'm going to check in with you like once a month, and maybe I can send you videos then, but the rest of the time, you're just not going to hear from me. Is that someone like what would you do? You would say, okay, I'll meet you where you're at, or you go, you know what, maybe you should work with someone else.
So I think I'll like present them like a counter argument as to like why they should still try to communicate as much as they could or want with me. Even like, and then even if they don't want to, I'll ask like, would you be down to do like a weekly weekly review? Like fill in like a very simple sheet. You don't have to send me anything. Let me know what you did, how you felt, how's motivation, how are the joints, tissues, and stuff feeling. Like I want to know at least like some things, like what are you not enjoying, what are you enjoying, how's your life, like are you experiencing lots of stress? Like I think those athletes just look at training the way to like it's like a 0 or 1. It's like way too simple. Like it's not just the programming. It's like we adjust the programming sometimes based on your psyche, based on like how you like mentally respond to some things. But would I love to work with someone like that? No, but if it's a really good athlete, I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah, you've got yeah, sorry, before I give my 2 cents, I want to hear Gabby's response as well.
Yeah, so actually I always try to make things work with the capacities that I still have, you know, because I like my work to be consistent as well. So what I've actually done with a few athletes already is that I've tried. We have like end of block forms, but I've tried to also check in with them bi-weekly. So I send them a special form to still see like how is motivation going, how is everything moving, and I also make sure that the form is not too long because it still like needs to be time efficient. If that doesn't work, also just have more frequent calls with them, just to also talk with them on a like human level, you know, as Jochen said, like check in with them. How are you really doing? How can I motivate you as well? And there's even one athlete who was really hard to communicate with, and it's because I'm also using WhatsApp, and this is an app he doesn't usually use, and he's really busy. So he, after some time of going back and forth, like how can we communicate better with each other, he was like, actually, how about we switch over to Signal? So I was like, okay, I don't know the app, but I'm gonna download it, and so far it works out because he's just more available. He gets notifications, so if that's what it takes, then
that
why?
makes sense. Like, as a professional coach, you're going to have more robust systems to check in with him than he is going to have to check in with you. So I guess if I was going to choose one person in that relationship to make a change, that's smart. That makes sense. I mean, it's inconvenient in a way too, because now you've got your messages split across multiple platforms, and it's nice if those things can be consolidated, but you've also got other systems that you're using to help manage your workflows and stuff like that, where, especially somebody like what we're talking about, they may not.
When you said
Mhm.
Signal, I don't know the app either. I thought that you meant like smoke signals or something. Like if I shoot that signals, I was
I
like,
don't know.
what the hell? Okay.
Yeah,
No, but
I don't know if it's like an American application or
yeah,
yeah.
that's weird. No, but like
Maybe I use it.
oh, there we go. Yeah, guess it is an
Maybe
American
it
thing.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess you can do this once in a while, but honestly, if I'd had multiple athletes requesting like, hey, let's chat on Facebook Messenger, let's chat on Instagram, let's chat on Signal, let's chat on email. I only do WhatsApp and things like that. It gets messy. So some kind of structure is still necessary. So it's also up to every coach, I'd say, to set clear boundaries when they're necessary. Because now, of course, if it deviates from my workflow, some processes don't happen as automatic. So I do need to set myself tasks, check in with this athlete this week, because it's just not very obvious, when I open my WhatsApp.
Mhm.
So yeah.
I also feel like if someone inquired with you and they don't want to use like a certain platform, I feel like that's kind of weird. No, like how much effort is it to use like a different platform for the athlete? Because for you, it's like all you do. And if you have everyone on one platform and there are like 3 people spread across email, messenger, signals, smoke signals, even like it's weird because for them it's only you they have to talk to, but for you it's you have like multiple. Like I never get
Right.
that. Like when like we're talking about this now, I never feel like those are like the serious athletes. Like if you don't want to check in, I mean that's kind of a red flag. Like how long is this relationship gonna last? Is all of the effort that I put into you, is it worth it? Like at the end of the day, of course it's worth it if they stick to it, if it makes them happy, then it's all worth it. But if it just feels like it's like someone who does powerlifting for like 6 months and then just leaves.
Yeah. Well, like from a business standpoint, like we talk about like ideal customers and things of that nature, and like we can describe kind of in detail what an ideal customer, an ideal client partnership would look like. But then like most people are not that exactly, right? And I kind of think of it like this, like concentric circles of, you know, in the center, you've got your ideal customers, and then there's people that are close, but not quite that. They're still, great to work with, but just not perfect, right? And then further out, further out, further out. And then you kind of get to this boundary where it's like, is this worth continuing to work with this person or not? And sometimes it's process oriented stuff like that. Sometimes it's something else. Like I had an offer to coach someone for strongman a while back, and I've done stuff like that before. I'm just not in the spot right now where I want to do that now. Like they may have been ideal in every other way. It's just like that's not lining up with something that I can take on.
Yeah.
So and then other people were in different situations. So the boundary of kind of where is this no longer worth it is always a bit fuzzy, but it does exist.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
as like an early coach, it's different too, right? But then you just want to take
for
on
sure.
everyone. Like you need to take on everyone because you want to build something. Like you want to build the results, even if the athletes, even if it's not like a quote unquote good athlete in the sense that they don't follow up, don't check in.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where the space is at with stuff like this now, but I remember as a younger coach kind of coming up, and there was advice that older coaches would give is to like find, your ideal client or whatever. If you want to work with, rugby players, then, really focus in on rugby players. And it's like, okay, neat. But like when you're just like, I'm just trying to make this business work, like I'll coach anybody with money.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's true.
Like in the beginning, that's the truth. And then the specialization happens later.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you just have to, that's something I always said, like you have to be a chameleon, just adapt to the person in front of you, even if it's not what you would like them to be. It's just be accepting of it, work with the situation you have, make the best out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on like, do you only take on certain type of athletes, like only competitive athletes, or do you also take on like just not even athletes, just people that want to do sports? And it shapes your expectations you have on them. It also shapes the expectations they have on you. And of course, like the ones that are competitive and they tell you, I want to like go to worlds, I want to be the best of the world, I want to win Sheffield, and they ghost you and they are just not they are not strict even with themselves. You have every right to call them out for that and be like, hey, what the fuck are you actually doing? Like, you can be so much better. Like, let's make this actually now work, because this is not the way we can work effectively. Whereas like with the ones that just want to do sports and you feel like they're ghosting you, check in how motivated they are, check in if they're still doing their training, how you can help them. But yeah, you don't really have to call them out for anything, especially when they're really busy. You sometimes have to meet them where they're at.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a mature way to look at it.
That's it. I like this conversation because it's something I actually think about a lot though. Like the ideal athlete and who you want to work with. And I feel like find the perfect athlete for you. Like that will never happen. Like you will always have people on your roster if you want to make this a business, if you want to live off this, you will always have people that like to some extent are not what you would love them to be. But I think I said this last week. Like I'm at a point right now where I feel like no one on my roster is like one of those guys that's like, I'm in this for like 6 months and I don't take it as serious as you would want me to. So I feel like that's super cool, but you'll always have those people.
Sometimes we're wrong about this stuff too.
For sure.
Like I have currently on my roster some people who I wasn't quite sure about when I started working with them, and wasn't quite sure if like, is this going to be a good fit? Is this like, are we going to get along even? Yeah, just different potential issues, but also, like, I'm happy to say, like, I was dead wrong on a number of these, and like I've been very grateful to have taken on some of these athletes where things have really grown and blossomed, and there is a good quality coach-athlete relationship. Like, and it's not so much about the level they're at. The thing that's motivating to me as a coach is like what you were saying, Gabby. Like, I want to feel like I'm doing a good job. Like, in a lot of ways, this is a kind of art. You know, this is like my coaching is kind of a bit of an expression that I'm bringing something into the world, and we need to be a certain kind of partnership in order to really do that well. And it's not so much about the level of the athlete, but it's everything else. It's like, are they putting in, are they a good dancing partner? You know, essentially, you know, are they doing their parts in the same way with the same kind of commitment to it as I am. And, you know, I've been pleasantly surprised on a number of occasions. So I guess just happy to report that I'm sometimes wrong about that.
Being wrong is good sometimes, especially in these cases.
Sometimes, yeah. Hey, if Ronnie Coleman was a powerlifting coach, he might have said, everybody wants to build custom training programs, but nobody's got a process for how to do it on the regular. But we do. You see, most coaches rely on trial and error, and that's fine if that's your jam, but we wanted a coherent process. Way back in 2015, when I'd already been coaching for over a decade, I finally had learned enough from enough sources that I was able to put the pieces together into one coherent process. We call it emerging strategies. The bulk of our 16 world record setting powerlifters set those records using an emerging strategies program. We talk about emerging strategies a ton on this podcast and everywhere. If you ever want a single thorough explanation for how to implement the emerging strategies process, well, that's the emerging strategies course. The emerging strategies course includes 8 modules. That's almost 24 hours of video instruction covering everything. We teach fundamental concepts and basics all the way through integrated examples and case studies. You can watch it at your own pace, as fast or as slow as you want. Oh, and you know the RTS community, our private community that offers you just a stupendous amount of value all on its own? Well, if you enroll in the Emerging Strategies course, you get 6 months of that community membership for free. If you have any questions about some concept, you just post it in the network or jump on a live office hour call with one of our RTS coaches and you get your answer. If you'd like to enroll or just learn more, to include seeing a full lesson list, all you have to do is go to reactivetrainingsystems.com and click on courses in the main menu. You're gonna love it.
I always have these like specific athlete questions. Like Mike is working with Ben Pape right now. Like I want to know how things are going with him because he's like that. When I was a 105, I was looking up to him like a lot. He's a cool ass lifter. When I was in Poland for 2022 Euros, there was like I remember this like super early session and he just warmed up. He did like the bar, then he squatted 180, then he went to like 240, then to 290. 3 warm-ups just to get to a weight I've never squatted in my life. And that just something that stuck with me. Like how are things going with him?
No, that's a good question. I think things are going well with Ben. They, just being honest, like it did take a little bit longer to find our stride in the beginning than it usually does, you know, which is unfortunate with somebody that's also, you know, high profile like Ben is. But you know, I got to give him credit. Like he's the kind of person like what we're talking about, a good partner to have here, because he's obviously he cares about this a lot. He is intelligent, has thought about it a lot, and is bringing a lot of his own quality observations to the table. And his case was one. I usually do a good job of this, where when I start off somebody who's kind of already been successful and kind of already got a good head of steam, I usually do a good job of like, well, let's start off pretty close to home base. Let's start off with something that you're already pretty used to. Maybe we'll make some small changes and go from there. In his case, he mentioned that he was kind of looking for more of a change. That's kind of why I think part of what had him look at what I was doing, look at my program. So we started off with a bit more of a change than I might have otherwise started off with. And it wasn't a disaster or anything, but it did take a while to get our feet under us and, some other, I guess, events. As you peak for competition, nothing ever goes exactly how you plan it. And if things are already kind of not the best, then it's easy for things to go sideways. But yeah, so that said, we've kind of come back to a lot more of a collaborative thing, something that's a little bit closer to home base for him. And momentum is building, and I'm kind of getting more back to I guess just the simple part of coaching lifts, which is just like in an online setting is like watching the lifts and like, well, what do you see? And I talk a lot about the data side and gathering the evidence and what does the training log tell us and things like that. And I think that's important to do, but anytime I tilt too far in one direction, you can bet that I'll have some experience that kind of pulls me back the other direction, right? So I kind of view it as like this is a call to me of like, hey, don't over rely on the data side. You've still got to judge with your eyes and make assessments of lifts and be proactive as well. So yeah, so I guess that's the under the hood that I can say about that.
Yeah, I've just when I came into this call, I felt like I had to ask some questions too, and that was like one of the first ones that popped into my head. And another one
Yeah.
was like you've been working with Bryce Krawczyk for how many years now?
It's over a decade.
Yeah,
I think.
like how do you not fall into the trap of like sometimes you just need to like step away from what you've done in the past and then change things up. Like how do you effectively do that when you're working with someone for so long and you have that much data?
I also have good data systems, which helps a lot with that, right? And we talk about that a bunch, but I mean, it helps that Bryce is just cool to work with, and I just mean like he's easygoing. Of course, he wants to progress, and he's got the big goals that all of us have, but uh, at this point, especially, we've built up a lot of trust, and if I'll bring him harebrained schemes sometimes, like, hey man, I feel like uh, what's the guy's name from Back to the Future who just shows up
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's just like, hey, I've got this idea, this is gonna be great, and Bryce is just cool, man. He's like, yeah, man, if you think it's good, then let's give it a go.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a lot of stuff like that, but I experiment a lot with Bryce's training, and Bryce is open to it. So that helps a lot too.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like it's not easy to stay objective with someone like that. But of course, like you said, great data systems, um, yeah, make a big impact, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it sure helps, and I mean, Bryce falls in that category too, as being just a sharp dude. So, when we do get on a call and talk about like what's the plan coming up here, like he's got good insights as well, and if he's kind of noticed, yeah, pulling against chains is really making my deadlift feel snappy lately, then I mean, I'm going to listen. But yeah, it's just another one of those good collaborations. You know, like sometimes you just have people you just click well with, you get along, and the collaboration seems to be productive. And yeah, I can't say enough good things about working with Bryce.
He's a cool athlete.
Sounds like you also build a lot of trust, like mutual trust with each other, when you're able to just come with a random idea and he's totally fine with that. That's really awesome.
Yeah, I mean, totally. But I mean, it's hard to remember what it was like in the beginning, you know, working with Bryce, because I would love. Bryce has some of the best like long-term adaptation videos and stuff on
Mhm.
YouTube about powerlifting, because he started out in such a different place from where he is now, you know, and it's cool to see that transformation. But yeah, I mean, working with somebody that long, it's like it's fun sometimes to go look at what some of those early programs were like, you know, and kind of remind myself of where we were in the beginning, you know, which was just honestly a lot more typical.
Mhm.
But then, you know, as time goes on, you develop the relationship, and the athlete develops in level as well, which supports all of
Mhm.
it. So it's been a really cool journey.
Yeah, that's awesome. Would love to work with someone for that long. Like, of course, you have these athletes who you work with like 3-4 years, but I guess
Yeah.
it's different when you cross that decade mark.
It's pretty rare. It's pretty rare. So there've been a handful of people who I've worked with like really long term like that, but I've also been coaching since 2008. So so how long does it take to work with a client for a decade? Well, more than a decade.
Yeah. This was really cool.
I mean, yeah, thank you for joining us. This is really fun to pick your brain and kind of hear some of how you manage your program as well. Thanks for being here. Thanks for chatting with us. Thanks, Gabby, for setting this up. And thanks, everybody else, for watching and listening. See you all next time. Hey, let me tell you something that I know about you. Your lifting is important to you. It's probably one of your biggest priorities. And for people like us, nothing compares to the feeling that you get when you set a new PR. That feeling of being the best that you've ever been, of doing something that you've never done before. This is what we're all after, and it's also what RTS specializes in. Getting you the absolute best program possible so that you can hit new PRs and reach your goals. We call it radically individualized training, and we're really good at it. Whether we need to account for busy schedules or equipment limitations, or precisely turn the dials and get the details of the program just right, we have the tools and the experience to guide your lifting to the next level. To us, coaching is all about leadership, relationship, and creative problem solving. A coach should be poised to help you make tough decisions about training and competing so that you can continually grow in your development. And of course, a coach should be a first-rate problem solver, especially when it comes to your training, technique, and strategy. Now, all this has to be built off of a really strong, professional coaching relationship that emphasizes trust and respect. Additionally, RTS coaches are not on an island. We have a strong network of professionals to reach out to, so if you find yourself in need of some specific expertise, say in the realm of nutrition or injury management or sports psychology, there's a deep expertise available there too. For more information, go to store.reactivetrainingsystems.com and click on coaching. That's store.reactivetrainingsystems.com, then click on coaching. Hope to see you on the team soon.